Welcome aboard. Or don't let the door hit you on the way out. Welcome to the life of a floor crosser. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Heroes welcome. That's the sound from a video that Prime Minister Carney posted on his Twitter account, soundtrack and all, of the Liberals welcoming their newest MP into the family, Chris d'Entremont, from Western Nova Scotia. He was the only Conservative MP from that province, winning his riding for the third time just 6 months ago. But now he's a Liberal MP after crossing the floor. Liberals in Ottawa are thrilled with their latest convert. Conservatives in Ottawa can hardly contain their anger. Liberal House Leader Steve McKinnon, whose fingerprints are all over this, is playing coy with the news media about all the rumors on Parliament Hill that more opposition MPs could be joining the Liberals.
I know what happened in the last 24 hours, what the next 24 hours holds. I'm becoming used to, waking up to surprises every day.
Anita Anand, the Foreign Affairs Minister, said if others want to join Team Liberal, the more the merrier.
Well, I was born and raised in Nova Scotia, just a little bit down the highway from Greenwood, where he's based. And I'm very excited to welcome him to the National Caucus, the National Liberal Caucus. It's very good news.
Were you part of the process of bringing him into the fold at all?
Well, I let the House Leader and others do their work, but let me just say I'm part of the welcoming committee, that's for sure.
Okay, and do you know, are you working to recruit more Conservative MPs?
I'll just say this, the more the merrier.
Justice Minister Sean Fraser, the Nova Scotia Liberal heavyweight MP, was asked what role he played in recruiting d'Entremont.
Look, this is a decision that Chris has made. I've had conversations with him over the last number of years, but they've primarily been about how we can work together at the time across party lines to serve the communities that he represented that were seeking access to the programs that I was responsible for administering. A great example, Chris was in my ear in a completely nonpartisan way, trying to secure support for the Mariner Centre, a well-used community recreational building in Yarmouth. I had support of the local MLA, who was Liberal at the time, Zach Churchill, and everybody came together. We worked on a project, got the right scope. Chris hosted a big community event, invited us to do an announcement jointly for the community, and the thing that I love about the guy, it's always been about the people in his community he represents. These are the kind of conversations that perhaps open the door over the years to people seeing they can work better with one party than another.
Cody Blois is another Nova Scotia Liberal MP. He holds the neighbouring riding to d'Entremont's, King's Hands, and he's another happy Liberal.
Let me just say I'm very pleased that Chris d'Entremont has made the choice to join our caucus. He's my neighbour in Nova Scotia, great colleague, respected across party lines, and he'll make a great contribution. What I said to Kate McKenna with CBC, I said the Prime Minister is governing as a centrist. I think moderate Conservatives in my own riding, in terms of people that would identify as red Tories, are identifying with this government and Mark Carney as our Prime Minister. So look, if there's other members of Parliament that are looking across the way saying this is the type of government that I like, we're always welcome to those conversations.
So Chris d'Entremont's a great guy, a moderate, a red Tory, maybe even a closet Liberal. Not according to Conservatives, who have been reminding people what Chris d'Entremont was saying about the Liberals just weeks, if not days ago. This is Conservative MP Michael Barrett.
Well, I think Mr. d'Entremont has a lot of questions that he should be answering this morning. I would refer you back to Mr. d'Entremont's comments, and let me quote him from September. Since I was first elected here in 2019, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Even then, families in West Nova, as it was called at the time but is now Acadianapolis, were struggling. We warned that the Liberals' out-of-control spending and massive deficits were irresponsible, but of course they did not listen. Now, after 6 months under a new Prime Minister who promised financial discipline, Canadians are still waiting. He said that he would be judged by the cost of the grocery store. Well, Canadians are judging him and they're not impressed. And I want to give you 3 more words from him in his description of what he expected would be a deficit of this size. He called it, Mr. D'Entremont calling it, monstrous, irresponsible burden on future generations.
But he left the caucus. What does it say about the Conservative caucus?
I think that
across the floor at this time.
I think this says that Mr. D'Entremont is a man, if he plans to vote for this budget, that can't be taken at his word.
Meanwhile, some Conservative supporters on social media are posting recent videos of D'Entremont. In those videos, he offers a very different opinion of the governing party that he's just joined.
Canadians are hurting. Families are being forced to cut deeply into their grocery budgets just to get by. And frankly, that makes me a little bit angry and a little bit sad.
Now, as for that federal budget debate, we'll resume on that in the House of Commons later today. There could be a vote on a Conservative motion to reject the budget, but it's worded in such a way that it's never going to pass. House watchers are now saying the next big test and the first real confidence vote will come because of a maneuver from the Bloc Québécois, most likely tomorrow. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
He's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is back, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Hello there.
Hey, Rob. Hope you're doing well today.
Everything is good here. Great to hear from you this week. The prevailing opinion in our political news media today, Michael, is that Pierre Poilievre is in trouble because of the floor crossing of Chris D'Entremont. First of all, what do you think of D'Entremont's decision to defect to the Liberals?
I don't think much of it, but that's unsurprising as an opening line. It depends what you believe. When he went out to the press and they asked him the question, he claimed that as a red Tory, he did not feel comfortable in the party and he left. However, the prevailing winds also show that there was, amongst Conservatives anyways, and they've all kind of acknowledged it, that there was some frustration by Mr. D'Entremont because he was not maintained as Deputy Speaker for the House of Commons. I have a sense that it's the latter, not because I'm a Conservative politically, but that's my sense of it, because if you look at Mr. D'Entremont's record, he's been a Conservative for many years of his life. It's not surprising that he's a red Tory. Many are out in Atlantic Canada. And I think it should be noted that there are red Tories still in the party, and I don't see them running, Rob. I really don't. So I think that unfortunately it was done for what happens in a lot of cases with floor crossing, was done for selfish purposes. And whether he likes it or not, that's the way a lot of us look at it, at least Conservatives anyways. And I don't think it's as big an issue as people are making it out to be, but we can get into a little bit more of that, obviously, during our discussion.
Let's get into it right now. What do you think of these claims that this casts doubt over Mr. Poilievre's leadership over the Conservative Party of Canada?
Yeah, it most certainly does not. I mean, look, unfortunately, floor crossings, there's a long history of in this country of basically MPs going from one party to another, or in cases, multiple changes. It does happen. There's one gentleman a few years ago, from I think about 84 to 88, he was elected, I believe, as a PC, became a Liberal, an NDP, and sat as an independent. I mean, that's all in a 4-year span. There unfortunately is a nature of some people to just sort of swirl around, and ideological consistency is obviously something I've always prided myself in, and I think others do too, whether they're on the right side of the spectrum or the left side. But there's a lot of people who just blow with the winds and then think that, well, I'm going to move myself into a situation that benefits me. Again, it's only one MP. We are still in a minority parliament. Well, Mr. D'Entremont obviously came out and tried to suggest that other Conservatives were considering doing the same thing. One of the two, whose name had swirled around, she's already confirmed on video she's not, which I appreciate. And the other one that they kept pointing to that, he did the same thing as Mr. D'Entremont. He locked down his account. Apparently his account's been locked down for over a year, but nobody really paid that much attention to it. So it's not, it's unfortunate. No one's going to say that Conservatives are sitting and celebrating over this decision. But a floor crossing is what it is, and it hasn't changed the nature of this Parliament. Yes, it brings Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberals closer to a majority. I don't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
But as of right now, we are still in a minority Parliament situation.
Yeah. What if more leave, though?
They do. I mean, that's we live in a free society. We live in a democracy. If people wish to switch, they will. But, but to look at it beyond this, as obviously everyone's trying to point to, that this means Mr. Poilievre's leadership is in trouble. No, it's not. I think that most Conservatives realize that those who are in the caucus, those who are in the party, that being holding membership, and those who vote for them will continue to do so, irrespective of what individual MPs choose to do. If it changes the whole nature of Parliament, so be it. And that's something you have to think about and consider next January when they go to a leadership review. But do I think that he's going to be threatened? Pierre Poilievre's going to be threatened by it? No. Do I think he's going to collapse as a leader? No. Do I think it's going to have a big take one way or the other? No.
I mean, this term red Tory. Should Mr. Poilievre be doing more outreach, be more welcoming to quote unquote red Tories?
Well, I could return and say, where has he been less welcoming? The fact is that there are red Tories in the party. There are red Tories in the Conservative Party of Canada caucus. They are still there. They have not gone anywhere, and based on what I'm seeing so far, no one else is leaving. The red Tories are welcome into the Conservative political tent. They always have been. Yes, it's true that I and others have argued there's different ways that you could build a Conservative Party. Many years ago, I'm not going to hide from it, I wrote a column that suggested that it might be easier for Conservatives to link with blue Liberals rather than red Tories. I thought that there's just more of a natural alliance on economic issues. That doesn't mean that red Tories are not welcome into the party. But for many years, red Tories did lead the party, or red Tory-ish type leaders. And some cases it worked out well, in other cases it did not. And then there were issues like Brian Mulroney, who started off as a red Tory, kind of blended the two together, that being left-leaning red Toryism and right-leaning blue Toryism, and built a centrist coalition. And in many ways, my old friend and boss, Stephen Harper, who would be more on the blue Tory side, obviously, continued to do that. Pierre Poilievre has also continued to do that too. And there are red Tories in senior leadership roles in the current party caucus. So I think he's doing just fine that way. It's a question of whether red Tories are happy or not with the way things are going. But the prevailing winds are showing that blue Tory ideas, leaders, politicians, supporters, etc., are what's in vogue.
All right, we'll stop here. When we come back, Ma'am Danny takes New York. We talked about that. I think it was about a month ago. Michael and I talked about that. And now it has come to pass. A Democratic Socialist is mayor of New York City. When we return, Michael's thoughts on that. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, we're back with Michael Taube. He's a syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I don't know, people may be wondering, why do you keep talking about this New York City election and Zoran Mandani? I find it fascinating. Look, when somebody comes from out of nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, as this 34-year-old person has done from obscurity in the New York State Assembly, and crafts a message that wins an election campaign in the largest city in the United States that has a GDP, New York City's GDP, just the city of New York rivals Canada's GDP. This is something to pay attention to. To me, and at its core, it was an affordability message. Now, we talked about this, I think, about a month ago. He's won decisively. He's won.
Yes, he did.
What is your reaction to his victory?
Well, unsurprisingly, I thought it was an abhorrent decision and they couldn't have made a worse choice, really. Again, I agree with you that it's an interesting story.
You never hold back. You never hold back,
Well,
do you?
no, but why? But again, nobody listening, if they even slightly know my name, would be shocked that I would say something like that. But one of the ways I've always admired the U.S., Rob, is that they've been able to avoid the pull of socialism. They've elected socialist politicians here and there, a lot locally, but it has happened. We know that. We know Bernie Sanders right there is still sitting in the Senate. I mean, AOC and other House reps, the squad, or what remains of them, are still there. They're all basically the equivalent of democratic socialists, much like Zoran Mamdani, who is also one. I mean, look, in his victory speech, the first person he quotes, Rob, the first person is Eugene Debs. Dear God, for anybody who knows anything about politics, that was the first socialist to run for president of the United States, and he did it several times. Now, most people in the room probably don't have the slightest clue who he was. And that's, unfortunately, the sad part of this. And this was part of the trick of Mamdani's success. He was able to get away from all the labels that people used on him, which were all logical and were all real, and he actually sold himself as a man of the people, a person who will defend immigrants, defend blue-collar workers, defend those who are disenfranchised, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how the message worked, and it resonated. And he had obviously a lot of young people working with him who ran a pretty high-profile campaign, and they blew the water out of the traditional politicians and the traditional figures of New York City politics. The other two candidates who are running, Andrew Cuomo, we know the former governor there and was disgracefully kicked out after a whole variety of things of allegations of sexual harassment. He ran as an independent. And Curtis Sliwa, who founded the Guardian Angels, was running as a Republican. Again, they had their faults for sure. They were still, both of them, better choices than Mamdani, who has never had a major leadership role like this, has never run anything this big, and has no experience and no business running such a big city, which, as you said correctly, you just look at GDP, it's literally the same as Canada, and it's bigger than other small countries.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what happens. Rent stabilization, I'm sure he can do that. Will he be able to deliver free transit? I don't know. Or universal child care? I don't know. A tax on the wealthy? We'll see. We'll see what happens, and we'll see what happens to New York.
God help him.
It's one to watch. You say God help him. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Rest in peace,
Catch up
New
next
York.
week.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Our Newsday panel coming up right after the news. Here on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, it's time for our Thursday Newsday political panel. Lots to cover today. Josie Sabatino's back with us from Summa Strategies. Good to hear from you, Josie. How are you these days?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. And welcome back to Melissa Bruno, principal at Earnscliffe. How are you, Melissa?
Really good. Really busy, but excited to be here.
Oh, I bet you're busy. Everybody's busy because it's budget week. It's budget week, and it's floor crossing week. So look, this was budget week. That is usually the biggest political news story in the country. Here's the budget. It's the anticipation of the budget, and then the budget, and then the reaction to the budget. It's like a 5-day news cycle. It seems, however, this is my own opinion, I led with this today, it's been overtaken by the defection of Chris D'Entremont from the Conservatives to the Liberals. Melissa, let me start with you. What makes the floor crossing the bigger story?
We have a minority parliament where the Liberals are 3 votes shy of a majority, meaning that they need members of the opposition to support them and this budget, or we risk going to another federal election. So D'Entremont crossing to the Liberals arguably means that he'll support the budget. That only leaves the Liberals needing 2 more votes for them to pass this budget and stay in power. And so I would say that that's a pretty good and exciting political story compared to a budget that was, really hyped up to be transformational. But I think it seems to have fallen a little bit flat. It's a budget that is very much targeted at the business and investment community and less so for everyday people more directly. And so I think it's not really an exciting budget. And so it wasn't really that hard to compete with.
Okay. Josie, what makes the floor crossing story a bigger story than the budget?
Well, I think Melissa hit the nail on the head. This problem with this budget is that there were very few affordability measures for Canadians. And if you're the government about to head into a break week, those are the things that you want to be selling at the doorstep, and they simply don't exist. The biggest thing in there was the middle class tax cut that was announced months ago. So I think those big ticket items that would resonate with Canadians are missing from this. And that's exactly why the Liberals were willing to step on their own message with this floor crossing as the thing that they wanted to put in the window. I really don't think that this speaks to Canadians in the same way that previous budgets have. And the Liberals really did themselves, I think, not a disservice, but certainly wanted to change the message very quickly. And that's what we saw this week.
Okay. I think as a news person, what makes the floor crossing the bigger story is because it's the more interesting story. There are personalities involved instead of numbers, which makes it easily more relatable, I think, to the audience. Budgets are big news in Ottawa, but are people in the rest of the country really paying attention to capital investment depreciation rates, for example, which is an important thing in the budget, but is it something that people can relate to? Here, I think with this story, Chris d'Entremont from the Conservatives to the Liberals, I mean, you have it all. You have drama, you have intrigue, you have, good guys. Is Pierre Poilievre of the good guy? Is he the bad guy? Is Chris d'Entremont the good guy? Is he the bad guy? It has it all. I think that's what makes the floor crossing the bigger and the more interesting story to tell. Now, Melissa, what do you think the chances are that other MPs could be crossing the floor? What do you think the chances are of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And obviously, it's something that everyone's paying really close attention to. I think the Liberals have been courting sort of that centrist conservative type of MP for many months. I think there were, at least two Conservative MPs that sort of publicly dismissed rumors of them crossing the floor as not being true. But I think, it's entirely possible that we'll see some floor crossings in the coming days and weeks. But I would also say, the timing of d'Entremont's floor crossing announcement seemed pretty purposeful and pretty almost coordinated with the government. And so I would think that if there were others that would that would be coming through the woodwork, they would have been more strategic.
They would have happened by now?
All at once. Yeah.
They would have happened by now? Okay. All right. They would have happened by now. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. What do you think, Josie? What are the chances that other MPs could cross the floor?
Well, I think if we see it, there are two big moments left on the calendar. There is that final vote for the budget where the Liberals, I think, will be putting all of their weight into trying to get more Conservatives to meet that moment, or NDP for that matter. But I think that we'll see that before the final vote on the budget. Otherwise, I think the next opportunity for them would be ahead of that leadership vote when they're trying to make the case for their majority government to really put the nail in the coffin of Pierre Poilievre. So I think that those are the kind of pivotal moments that Canadians should watch for. But in between, I don't think we'll see much action if those two moments aren't met.
Josie, Chris d'Entremont says he wasn't offered anything. Do you think that's true, Josie? Do you think that's true?
No, I absolutely don't. I think that's what the Liberals have to their advantage right now is that they have a functioning government. They have a minority on the precipice of a majority, and they have a lot more to offer, whether that's a committee chair or parliamentary secretary, cabinet minister. There's a lot more at play, and I think that Chris d'Entremont is playing the short to medium-term game here, and I think he expects it to pay dividends given how close his riding was in the last election.
Yeah. Or community investment. If I cross the floor, I need this road paved. I need this bridge replaced. I need this roof on the community center replaced. Or this wharf that needs to be rebuilt. It could be anything like that. Do you think Chris d'Entremont was offered anything? He says he wasn't offered anything. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that somebody would make the political calculation and, cross the floor, which obviously has pretty local blowback for him. And so it's hard to believe that he wasn't offered something, maybe not a cabinet position, but Rob, to your point, some kind of benefit for the community or the riding that he represents to lock in his seat for the next election.
Yeah, okay. We'll be right back. What does it all mean for Poilievre and his leadership of the Conservative Party? What about this claim? Well, it's in trouble. Poilievre's in trouble now because of this defection. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with our Thursday Newsday political panelist, Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies, from Earnscliffe, Melissa Bruno. Josie, what do you make of all the claims Poilievre's in trouble? His leadership grip on the party is in jeopardy. What do you think about that? Josie? Is Josie there? She on mute?
I am not on mute anymore. Well, that seemed to be a faction of poets that's still happening.
That's okay.
I think it's critical that the Conservatives get past this budget vote without any more defections, because if this Liberal minority becomes a majority, that will only feed this conversation more, and it'll be top of mind until they go into that leadership vote in January. So I think that that's critical for them in the short term, but they also need to show a united front and get back on message. The Conservatives and Poilievre do best when they're talking about the things that are resonating with voters, which is affordability, which is crime, immigration. So getting back on message, I think, is part two of this conversation. And unless they can do that, there are only going to be more questions than answers.
Okay. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I think the D'Entremont's crossing obviously signals that there was no relationship management, and that is likely just the tip of the iceberg and a widespread problem. I mean, one of the things that I've heard from some of my conservative colleagues is that the Conservatives have, quote unquote, cauterized the bleed, more generally speaking, about potential forward crossers. And so, that kind of a tactic, I'm sure, is probably not appreciated amongst some of the other sort of red Tories or centrist Tories. And so I think all in all, it's not a good style. It's not a good vibe. It's not a good look for Pierre's leadership, and probably will make convention a lot more difficult for him and his organizing team.
Yeah, if it's a one-off, that's one thing. If it's a drip, 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 that's another. If we're still talking about this 2 weeks from now, it's a problem, I think, for him. What about this idea he has to somehow do more outreach, be more willing, I guess, to engage or understand red Tories? What do you think about that, Josie?
I love it how we cyclically have this conversation about the difference between red Tories and blue Tories, and yet nobody can ever explain what that means. I would note also that we're not having a conversation about what it means to be a Liberal, even though, you can have a Stephen Guilbeault in a caucus and a Mark Carney. This is something that Conservatives love to talk about, but it has no real meaning. And I think what is better spent is doing outreach to caucus, finding out what are the concerns in their communities, and then relaying that on a broader national stage. That is the conversation that Conservatives should be having right now, rather than splitting hairs about red Tories and blue Tories.
Okay. What do you think of that, Melissa? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think a leader has to engage his caucus, regardless of whether they're a red Tory or whatever, however the fraction of their ideology sits within that party. A leader's job is to engage their caucus. And so I think, if that's not happening, then that totally brings into question, should he be in a leadership role? What value is he bringing as a leader then?
Okay. So, I mean, there was all kinds of buzz, rumor, speculation ahead of the budget that it might not pass. I don't know if that's still the case. What do you think, Josie? How much confidence do you have that the budget will survive a test of confidence in the House?
I am fairly confident it is going to survive. I mean, we just talked about the issues with the CBC. They have a leadership race about to happen early next year. The NDP have no money, and they also don't have a permanent leader in place. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to see some abstentions from that side of things. And unless the Liberals want to defeat this thing, it is going to pass.
Do you agree, Melissa?
Like more or less, I agree that most of the people I've also chatted with think that the budget is likely to pass. I will say that if the NDP, decides to abstain or even if some vote against, they're not afraid to go to an election regardless of them. People thinking that they have no money. On the flip side, I mean, they have nothing left to lose. So there's that. I think the margin is so thin, though, that mistakes can happen, and where MPs are late or they don't show up by accident, and funnier things have happened. And so I don't think any of the parties are intentionally wanting to throw Canada into an election 6 months after the last one, but I think anything could happen.
Okay. I would like an election. Elections are good for the news business. Okay. Bring it on. Bring it on. 30 days of politics, bring it on, I say. But I don't think it's going to happen. I did for a while, but now I don't. Okay, when we come back, yes, the Mandani phenomena, could it sell here? Avi Lewis, who's running for the New Democrat leadership, says, see, it worked there in New York City. We're going to bring that to Canada. We think that could work here too. That message that he was selling those voters in New York, a lot of young voters and a lot of immigrants. We'll talk about it when we return. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
We're here with Josie Sabatino from Summa Strategies and Melissa Bruno, Principal Earnscliffe. And when the news outlets, and it's probably that time of year, they're starting to think about it, stories of the year, the biggest news stories of 2025. Mark my words, this will be one of them. Zoran Mandani's victory in the New York City election. That's going to make it to a lot of lists of stories of the year. It'll be under consideration, I think, for Newsmaker of the Year in the United States. Here in Canada, let me read this to you. This is from Avi Lewis, the NDP leadership candidates. Tonight, New Yorkers have shown us, this is from his X account, tonight New Yorkers have shown us that bold socialist ideas can win. While we stare down one of the most harmful federal budgets in a decade, it's clear transformative policies are winning policies. It's time to build an NDP that champions them. So he seems to think, well, that Mandani message, that can resonate here. The Mandani message at its core, I think, in my own opinion, is an affordability message. More affordable rent, government-run grocery stores, so more affordable food, universal childcare. He was saying on one of the news networks just yesterday that he looks to Quebec as a model for that. Could that resonate here with, say, young, progressive Canadians and new Canadians? Young people and immigrants they were the most vocal, I would say, the most passionate Mandani supporters. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question affordability is a top-tier issue in Canada right now. Like everything from housing, groceries, cost of living, this is all dominating public opinion polling. I think the federal, for us here in Canada, our system is a bit different than that in New York City municipal politics. So, federal jurisdiction over housing and affordability is shared with provinces and to some extent municipalities, making some of those promises that Mandani made a bit harder and more complex to deliver. I think Mandani also had a clean slate to run on. No one knew who he was. He was an underdog. Everyone loves an underdog. And he was running against a Trump-endorsed opponent. So the political climate and the framing of what people would get from those two stark political choices was very clear. And that is not the case in Canada. So I would really caution anyone in the federal NDP to just do a simple copy and paste of Mandami's strategy and tactics.
He doesn't have Trump as a big, in Canada. I mean, Trump's a big boogeyman, but not in the same way it is in New York, I guess. What do you think, Josie?
Well, I think there's a danger in people starting to view these ideas as credible. I mean, the creep up in the United States didn't happen overnight, and I think that a good way to collapse what's left of Canada's remaining social safety net is to endorse policies like public grocery stores, for one. I mean, the idea of this is that the middle class will ultimately bear the brunt of this. Corporations will flee. Like, these are very serious ideas to put in the window and try and sell to Canadians at a time when they are looking for solutions and are getting desperate. We know this is taking place per political opinion polling, and I think that we really have to be cognizant of this and really push back on some of these ideas and the credibility of them.
All right. Very interesting. Love the discussion today. Thank you so much. We'll see what happens with all the drama on Parliament Hill this week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, that's Melissa Bruno from Earnscliffe, and from Summa, Josie Sabatino. Talkback is coming up next. Trust is our theme. Trust on Talkback. Trust me, it's going to be interesting. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Something a little bit different today. We're going to ask you about trust. Trust in institutions, trust in various professions, trust in society at large. Trust, the theme for Talkback today. Because we need a little break from all the politics. Nonstop politics. We've been talking politics for 4 straight days now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, most of today already. So we're going in a different direction for Talkback today. I have a list here. A list of 10. And I'm going to keep what I call a trust scoreboard. And what I want to know is when you hear these 10 things, what ones do you trust the most? Okay, or trust the least? And then we'll figure out what kind of lands in the middle. Okay, and we're going to keep track. We're going to keep score. I have here high trust, low trust, somewhere in the middle on my notepad. And I want to figure out why you feel the way you do. And we'll see at the end of Talkback if any identifiable trends emerge. So listen to these 10 and tell me what do you trust the most, the least, what lands in the middle. And we'll just see where the conversation takes us. Okay, so here they are in no particular order. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Okay, let me repeat those. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. That's the list of 10. What we want to know is, based on the list, who do you trust the most and who do you trust the least? And we'll figure out who lands in the middle as we go along. Why do some score very high on your trust scorecard? Why would you give some of them low scores? And as I say, we'll sort out the middle as we go along. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Why do we want to ask this? Well, for a few reasons. We hear it all the time. It's in the news all the time. Trust in our institutions is eroding. And many reasons are often cited. People are increasingly frustrated with political leadership, government in general, broken promises, politicians that are out of touch with the needs of ordinary people. The news media is often described as an institution with a trust problem, which needless to say, is not good for someone in my line of work. But look, many polls have come out, studies have shown that over the last few years, trust in the news media, especially the so-called mainstream or legacy news media, trust has been declining. It has been eroding. A report this year, actually, from Edelman, the communications firm, called the Trust Barometer, said things are so bad for the Canadian news media that, quote, in Canada, no news source is trusted. Whether that's the traditional media, print and television, search engine-driven media, influencers on social media, none of them are really trusted anymore to any great degree. To any great degree. So that's why we put journalists on the list. The news media, just as an example, high marks, low marks, somewhere in the middle, judges. When I was a much younger man, judges commanded a great deal of respect. If you happen to know someone in your community who was a judge, that person was probably one of the most respected people in that community. Is that still the case? I'm very curious to find out today. Judges have been in the news media recently. Less than a week ago, we were talking about the Supreme Court ruling striking down a 1-year mandatory minimum sentence for accessing and possessing child pornography. Today, we heard from the same Supreme Court on the situation with the ostrich farm in BC. Looks like the call of those ostriches can go ahead. And it's in the news media all the time. Revolving door justice, easy bail conditions, lenient sentences for repeat offenders. Is any of this taking a toll on the trust you have in judges? Do you trust judges a lot, a little, somewhere in the middle? Let us know. 1-833-668-2577. What about the police? What about the police? Do you trust the police? Many years ago, after the killing of George Floyd and the protests that followed, trust in the police cratered. But that was 4 or 5 years ago. Remember, defund the police. It was all the rage. Has trust in the police rebounded since then? Do you trust the police? Have all the news stories about public disorder and crime maybe changed your views of the police? There are a lot of different ways our conversation goes today. I really hope we can sink our teeth into it. Trust. Who do you trust? Who do you trust? The police? Business leaders? Your neighbors? Nurses? Journalists? Politicians? Doctors? Scientists? Teachers? Judges? Who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the least? We'll see who ends up in the middle. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. Trust me, I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So I'm calling it the Trust Scorecard. It's a list of 10. Want to know who you trust the most, who you trust the least, and we'll figure out the middle as we go along. Out of these 10, the police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who gets high scores for trust and who doesn't? 1-833-668-2577. Let's start with John in Halifax today. Hi, John.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, John. Trust, yes.
Rob, I think you got to trust in yourself more than any of the other parties you mentioned. I heard about the Supreme Court issue this week. That is disgusting. I think their background should be looked into. There's something doesn't smell right there. As far as the RCMP or most of our police forces in this country, I don't have a lot of trust or faith in them. and that's got to do with, and even with judges, things that have happened in my past and are happening in the presence of people I know.
Okay.
There seems to be no justice, and I don't know if we've gone too far in tying the hands of these people that they have given up. But and politicians as well. There always seems to be a hidden agenda, Rob. No matter what any one of these groups you bring up.
All right.
And it's just
well, who would you give of these 10? Who would you give high trust scores? So you haven't mentioned teachers or scientists or doctors or nurses or people like me who are in the news media. What about those? Would they be at the top?
I would give high trust to the people who are not controlled by other parties. A lot of teachers, we have teachers in the family, we have nurses in the family. I trust them.
Okay.
But at times, what they are doing is controlled by others, which is unfortunate.
All right, John, you've got us off to an interesting start. John, I'm just going to move along to another caller. Thank you. But, judges, police, not much trust. Teachers, nurses, as long as they're acting on their own, I guess, is what he meant. Joanne, thank you, Joanne, for calling. Hi, Joanne.
Hi.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Joanne. What would you say?
I think it's an extremely complicated question because it's important that the public is informed when all of these different institutions make mistakes and cheat and lie. But generally, I have a lot of faith in all of them, and I agree with the caller before. I mean, are their hands tied, right? Right now in my province, teachers are so overworked and it's insane, right? So maybe they're not doing what they used to be able to do. And I think it's a very individual thing. Like most judges, I think, are good. I think most police are good. I think most everybody's good. Even many in the media are good, and then there's some bad. So I think it's much more complicated than you can't just say all police are bad because of some incidences that have happened. So I guess I'm naive, but I genuinely feel that many of those I trust them all, but politicians have some power over many of those institutions.
All right, so let me come at this a different way. Let me come at this a different way then with you, okay?
Yeah.
Because there are many public opinion research firms and other types of firms who have been doing studies on trust for a very long time. The one I cited is they've been studying that for 25 years. Why is it year after year after year at the top of the list would be, say, teachers and nurses, and at the bottom of the list are politicians?
I think that people that help society and educate and don't have many opportunities to do things wrong, like a nurse would never intentionally do something wrong unless they're overworked or addicted. And teachers, again, we put tremendous trust in them unless they, molest our children. So these are people that contribute well to society, where they have less opportunity to intentionally do bad things, perhaps.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question just before we stop. I put neighbors on the list. Your neighbors. Would you say you trust your neighbors?
I do. I'm very fortunate. I trust my neighbors with all my heart and soul as far as they can affect me. But again, if there's a neighbor that I don't know, like the other gentleman said, you sort of have to use your own judgment. But I'm fortunate that way. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and just like that, we're off and running. Trust, the trust scorecard. Out of these 10, police, business leaders, neighbors, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges, who gets, in your opinion, high scores for trust and who would get low scores for trust? Who do you trust? 1-833-668-2577. We have 3 lines available there. We'd love to hear from you on Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So it's my list of 10 here. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the least? And we'll figure out the middle as we go along. Who gets high scores for trust? Who gets low scores for trust? 1-833-668-2577. Paul is up next here in Calgary. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. What a very interesting conceptual, question you asked your listening audience. So I just, I thought it's interesting because these positions that you mentioned, they're all positions usually where we're either learning or they're positions of vulnerability. And yet the people who are supposed to be in charge of that, like, when you come into the doctor, you're vulnerable, your kid is learning and the teacher, same with the nurses, judges are judging over your faith and so on. The vulnerable positions, and it's supposed to be vocation-based. And yet something has changed there, where it's not, we're worried about the trust issue in these professions that are vocation-based, and yet we're in a vulnerable situation, whereas my neighbor, I got to pick my spot. I got to pick where I live. You bet I trust my neighbor over my doctor, I trust them over a judge. For sure I do. They're like-minded, and I got to pick that. Whereas these other situations, they're being persuaded, and I'm not trying to get the right-left thing going again, but the left situation is like a tidal wave, and it's influenced these positions of power such that they don't care about the individual and their circumstances. They want to satisfy that left mandate, and therefore I'm very, very untrustworthy of individuals who are in professions who preside over things, following a mandate for the collective versus looking at my personal circumstances where, like my neighbor, you bet I trust. And I'll tell you the other thing is I don't trust these professions because a lot of them are union-backed. I don't trust the unions. Okay, thanks. Great.
Okay. No, if I could, are you still there or did you hang up? He's gone? Oh, he dropped. Okay. All right. Wade in Sylvan Lake. Wade. Hi, Wade.
Good day.
Yeah. Hi, Wade. Yeah. Good to hear from you,
Hi.
Wade. All right. So
Thanks. Who I trust the most are my neighbors and the Alberta Prosperity Project.
Okay. Well, not
And
really on the list.
who
but
I-
okay.
Sorry?
Not really on my list there, but I'll let it slide. Okay.
Okay. Well, I know
Yeah.
it's not on your list, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of a hard thing to pick one or the other. Anyways, who I trust the least are politicians, especially the Liberal Party.
Okay.
And
What about your premier? What about your premier?
As far as
Would that include your premier?
I understand you can't paint everybody with the same brush, but I can tell you
Right.
our premier in Alberta has more, excuse the term, more balls
Guts.
than most men I know.
Guts would have been fine.
And the other people that I don't trust, it's right up there with politicians, are Supreme Court judges.
Judges. Yeah. Okay.
And some of that filters down to, judges in a regular court of law that you would have in provincial courts or whatever. There was a time, it seems to me, when if you were going to court for something, circumstances mattered. And now it seems like the only thing that matters is the precedents that were set over a course of 3 or 4 similar court cases. Like you go to court and you go, they just kind of like, did you do this or did you not? And you want to answer yes, but here is and they don't seem to care about that. Here's my reason and my justification for doing what I did, whatever it happens to be. But they don't seem to want to listen to that. They just go, well, over in this case, this was the precedent that was set, so you're going to be hit with that regardless.
Right. Okay. So neighbors would be at the top of the list. Politicians would be closer to the bottom. Okay, with the exception, you say, of your premier, and you don't have very much trust these days in judges, which is interesting because I think if you went back a generation, it would be much different a generation ago. I just have that feeling. But we'll be right back after the news. Trust is our talkback topic today.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Weigh in on the trust scorecard today. A list of 10. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the least? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. For example, whenever they do polls on trust. Okay, or trust in institutions. Politicians are always in the basement. In the United States, it's like Congress. Who do you trust the least? Congress. I have no faith in the Congress. And maybe that we'll see what happens. Maybe that's the case today. Teachers and nurses usually get very high trust scores. And so far, that's the case today from some of our callers. You think about this in the context of, say, the news cycle in the province of Alberta these days, because teachers went on strike, politicians ordered them back. Now thousands of nurses have voted to go on strike. What will the politicians do with the nurses? And who will the public trust in a scenario like that? When they hear from the two sides, will they have more trust in the Minister of Health or in the nurses? Or in the nurses' union? Whoever the spokesperson is for the nurses' union. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Sandra in Calgary today. Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
Hi, Sandra.
How are you today?
I'm very good, Sandra. Thank you. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
Just calling about the trust question that you have.
Yes.
Me personally, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust.
You don't trust anybody?
No, I trust a very small group in my circle, and that's about it. I've had too many interactions with the RCMP that have thrown my trust out the door. The disrespect that I've gotten from them. Same thing with the nurses, doctors. I don't trust any of them.
Really? Really?
Yep. And I think it all goes on your personal experience that you have with these people.
Okay. What about people who are in business? People who run businesses? No?
No, because they're only about their bottom line.
They're only about the bottom line.
They're only about their bottom line. They're only about their bottom dollar. They're only about filling their own pockets. They don't. If they did care or anything like that, they'd be trying to fix the problem that's going on in the world, and they're not. All it is feed my pocket, and my whoever's a part of the business, the CEOs and all that stuff. Because those are the guys that are the ones that are getting bonuses at the end of the year. Why?
Maybe some of them are. I guess it depends what line. I suppose it depends what kind of business they're in and whether it's a profitable business or not. What about the news media? Do you trust what you read, see, hear in the news media?
No.
No. Why not?
No. Because it's too wishy-washy. It's too flippy-floppy. Anybody can say whatever they want to say, and there's no accountability for people. Period. But but regular citizens are supposed to have accountability. But nobody else is supposed to have accountability for anything they do.
Okay.
It's okay for them to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and it's okay.
Right. So, generally speaking, you don't have trust in just about anybody, but you did say as a close circle. What about your neighbors? Do you trust your neighbors?
To a point, yes.
To a point. What do you mean to a point?
It's not like when I was growing up here, you could leave your door open and you could count on your neighbor, all your neighbors, your next door neighbor, your across the street neighbor, all your neighbors were there to watch your house if anything was to happen. Nowadays, people don't care. They literally don't.
Right. So not much faith in your neighbors either. Okay. All right.
Very little. I have faith in people, but the world has shown it's too hard to trust people.
A cruel world. It's like a cruel world.
In some aspects, yes.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you. I'm just keeping notes here. Thank you, Sandra. Jody up next. Hi, Jody.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Jody.
First, I want to say that I don't trust umpires and referees. I know it's not on your list. The Blue Jays got ripped off, and I will say that till the day I die. Sorry.
All right. Okay. You're still in mourning over that. Okay. I've kind of moved on now. I've moved on to hockey and football now. So
yeah, so
I'm over
it's
it.
still hard. My top 5 for trustworthy is definitely the medical field, doctors and nurses.
Okay.
My neighbors, I do trust my neighbors. I've been in this place for 10 years, and I haven't had any problems with my neighbors. And teachers to a certain extent, like I say, probably 80%.
Okay.
And
why just 80%? Why just 80%?
Well, some teachers, I noticed, like I'm from New Brunswick, as you know, and like growing up in New Brunswick, some teachers would like if they had something against one of your family members, like from the past, they would like take it out on you.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like a grudge sort of thing. I've been through that. So I
see.
like,
okay.
You know what I mean? As in police, I trust the city of Calgary police a lot. They're very, every time I dealt with them, not stuff against me, but other stuff, they were very nice and all. RCMPs, no, not a bit. Nope. When it comes to least, of course, politicians, I don't trust politicians. I'd give them 5%, especially Carney. That is a little weasel, and I mean, you look at his face.
Okay. Well, there's no need for name calling, but yeah. Okay, but politicians would be at the bottom of the list. Fair enough.
And scientists, I do trust scientists to a certain extent, but since the COVID situation, like Fauci. He kind of discouraged me because I know he's a crooked dude, and right. So I'm thinking if he's crooked, what other scientists could be crooked, and what was the other one I was going to say? As in journalists, I say they're biased.
You think they're biased, which would erode your trust in them. You would think there was an agenda at play, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, all right. Thank you. Very thorough, Jody. Very thoughtful. Very good. Be right back. Hope you'll take part. I call it the trust scorecard. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. That's the list. Who gets high scores for trust and not so much. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So listen to our list of 10. The police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who gets high scores for trust? And who gets low scores for trust? Those are in no particular order. And take our trust scorecard. Participate in our trust scorecard. Chris is up next in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Hello, Chris.
Hello. Thanks for taking
Chris.
my call.
You're welcome.
I would vote that I trust my neighbors the most. And I would like to follow that by hopefully my doctors and nurses, although I believe that they sometimes are swayed by policies and procedures that they need to abide by.
Okay.
Would be politicians.
Of course. Yes. Okay.
That's my 2 cents worth for today.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
That I would absolutely vote for would be firefighters.
Firefighters. Okay. Sure. Firefighters. What about the police? Just curious.
Police, I have great respect for the police. I believe there's always a few bad apples in the bag, but yet I appreciate the job they do. They keep us safe, and their arms are somewhat tied at times by, I believe, our judicial system. But otherwise, I trust police.
Okay. Well, not to Not to extend the conversation too much, but on the judicial system, I mean, judges are on the list here.
I know, but judges seem to be quite swayed to, I don't know, from what I hear and what I see, and I've worked in the Youth Justice Department, I think judges have a light hand, and they don't sentence people what they should be receiving. They're too easy on them.
Too easy on them. Okay. Would you say your trust is being eroded in judges or the judicial system?
Definitely, but I believe that comes down to the politicians letting them do what they have to do rather than making allowances for, I believe, criminals that be deserving for what the judge hands down.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, very interesting, Chris. I like the way you thought that out there. Let's go to Aurora up next. I believe in Calgary.
Oh.
Aurora. Hi there.
Hi. Yeah. Just want to say thank you for the show. I am a first-time caller.
I appreciate that.
I guess we'll start with who I don't trust. I have lots of friends who are teachers, and there's good teachers out there, but I don't trust teachers. I actually homeschool because of that. They
Why
do
is
a
that?
hybrid. They go to school
That's
one
very
day a
rare
week.
that somebody would say they don't trust teachers. Why is that?
I think, and I've heard horror stories. I have people who work in the industry, but a lot of it's become less about academia and more about ideology.
Okay.
And so I like being able to be the one that teaches my child.
I see. Okay.
My children.
Okay.
My children.
Getting away from
Yeah.
maybe the basics of curriculum and more into, can I use the word woke? Would that be a fair
Yes.
description? Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely feel
Very
like
interesting.
that is the way
All right.
that
Okay.
the
Teachers.
public system has kind of gone.
Gotcha.
I will say that I know a politician, and I know I didn't understand how much they worked. You got to kind of put some trust in some of your politicians, but looking at our federal politicians, like how many committees there are about where did the money go, what happened to this, why is this set up, and everybody just points fingers at everybody, and then nobody's ever held to account. It really sets a precedent for whoever comes next, regardless of which party is next.
Right.
If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay. Sure. Anything else?
I guess I will say that I do trust. I worked in the legal industry, and I do trust our police officers. And I feel like, again, there's going to be a few bad apples. I do think the judges can only work within the system and the framework they have, but I do have a lot of trust in them, even if the decision they make isn't always what you were hoping for.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your call and being a first-time caller today. Why don't we stop here? Give people some more time when we come back. You'll have a few more minutes when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. We're talking about trust today. We have a list, varying professions, although your neighbors is on the list as well. Do you trust your neighbors? Who gets high trust scores? Who gets low trust scores? 1-833-668-2577 on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On trust, let's go right to Lynn in Waterloo. Hi, Lynn.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm very good, Lynn. Thank you. All right. Give me your trust scorecard here, Lynn.
So
Who would rank high? Who wouldn't?
Who would rank high would be my neighbors. I've literally left our garage door open for a weekend, and not an issue.
That's good.
The lowest has got to be recent experiences is doctors. And the reason I have issues,
doctors, wow.
There's no one being accountable. And the reason I say this is for two experiences. One was 3 years ago where I met with a fertility doctor, and they said, we need you to lose some weight. And okay, I get that. But that being said, they said, go see your family doctor and get them to prescribe Ozempic. Just lie and say you have diabetes. I was shocked that another doctor would say that.
Right.
And then the most recent experience was in August, where I actually filed a complaint with the CPSO. And if anyone doesn't know who that is, that's the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And the doctor and I had a very heated discussion where she had laid claim to say something that I did not say, which was using very foul and curse language. And when I called to report back to the actual hospital where this occurred, they said they took the information, but that's all they would do with it. And for me, I'm all about accountability. And when you lose my trust, I am going to put that to the parties who regulate you and ensure that you are held accountable and to the highest standard. Because what else are they lying about? If they're lying about stuff like this or making such assumptions that they are doing without having any accountability, they need to be held accountable.
Okay. So let me ask you this then. Before these incidents, how would you have rated your, say, trust in doctors, for example?
It was pretty high. I'd say 75% of the time.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty high. I think just
because I've looked at, I did a lot of reading in advance of today's show. And Ipsos every year, it releases like a global report about trust, and it lists dozens and dozens and dozens of different professions. And I focused on the Canadian angle today, and the most trusted people in Canada are doctors. The most trusted.
Yeah, and I really don't know why, it could be skewed. It could be people don't know the appropriate parties that regulate these industries where they can file their complaints or concerns, or some just roll off their shoulder. But for me, I'm seeing it more and more where doctors are saying things or doing things and no one's holding them accountable. And I think it's the fact that there's a lack of accountability and people are just not interested or just don't know who to contact to file their complaints or where to go to file even further. So I think it has a lot to do with not knowing, and ignorance is, a problem. If someone sees their general practitioner and they're not sure of who to complain to, they might just say, forget about it.
Right. Okay. But obviously you feel your trust has been broken. Your trust has been broken, and because of recent experiences that you've had. You trust your neighbors, not so much your doctor. I would just say it's very rare for a Canadian to say that doctors would get a low trust score. Very, very rare in this country.
Yeah,
in fact, according to Ipsos, the top three are doctors, then scientists, and then teachers. Doctors, scientists, and teachers.
Yeah, and mine is because of past experience. I have another, but I know you have only a certain time here.
Yeah, and in fact, that is our time. We're out of time. But thank you. No, it's interesting. It's a counter view, that's for sure, a minority opinion. But I'm glad we could get it on the radio today. Thank you. That's it for hour number one. If you're on the line, just hang on. Very busy news day again today. Bring you right up to date, and then right back to your calls on Talkback. On News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number two of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. And we're calling it the Trust Scorecard. List of 10. We want to know, who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the least? We'll figure out what ends up in the middle a little later. Based on this list: the police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who gets high score for trust and who gets low scores? 1-833-668-2577. Some people have been waiting quite some time, so let's get right back to it, please. Emerson. Hi, Emerson.
Hi, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob, for taking my call. Without hesitation, the highest respect goes to the Calgary Police. I don't just respect them, but I love them. They've done so many things to help me with problems. I probably wouldn't be alive today speaking to you if it wasn't for their trust. So I'm grateful for that. I always will be. With respect to the media, the only one I trust is you, because you say it the way it is and you give everybody a chance to be heard without being cut off if the person at the other end is not happy with the answer. So you're very balanced in your approach, and I really respect that.
Well, okay. What about the rest of, there's lots of media in this country. What about legacy media, mainstream media? What about social media? What about all of it?
Well, I think social media can be slanted towards their objective. I don't know. Maybe I'm just so disappointed with what I hear on with Fox and CNN. You put on CNN, they're Democrat. You put on Fox, they're Republican. I guess it's whatever you want to be. You have a choice. But I will say this, though people that I really, really, really least respect is the Lottery Corporation, and I'll tell you why. Back in the day, they used to do the draws live on CTV, so you could actually see them put the balls in the drum. Then you could actually see the numbers that came out. Now you just have to wake up in the morning and they just say, oh, the winning numbers were, and we have no way of knowing whether those numbers were actually drawn or how they arrived at those numbers, but we just have to believe them. Yeah. So back in the day, you could actually stay up, and I used to stay up after 11 o'clock news on CTV. They would have the auditors come in from the Lottery Commission, put the balls in, and then bring the camera right up to show you the ball. They'd have the dot under the nine in case.
I remember those days. Yeah. I remember those days. Sure. Yeah.
So now we just have to believe them. I mean, it hasn't stopped me from playing the lottery. I figure, you know what? For $10, you never know. Sometime they might actually pick my number. I don't know how they pick the number.
Right. But you have less trust in it. That's interesting. Emerson.
Yeah. I don't believe it. I mean, when these people say I win 70 million, 80 million, 90 million, it goes months and months with nobody winning, and all of a sudden some guy, and then you never hear or see again. So, but I will say this, when it comes, I just wanted to say something about one of your previous callers. When it comes to doctors, I love doctors. I've had so many doctors with all my medical problems. I love them all. I trust them all. No one's ever asked me to lie, and I don't think anybody, lying is a horrible word to use. But I've got a lot of respect for the Calgary Police, you in the media, and I also, as I said, the doctors. But the least of the least is the Lottery Commission, and
all right, the Lottery Commission. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, let's move along. Thank you, Emerson. Thank you. Linda in Waterloo. Hello, Linda.
Hello, how are you, Rob?
Hi, Linda. I'm very good, Linda. Thank you for calling today.
Okay,
all right.
I'll make it quick.
Take your time.
I will trust my neighbors.
Okay.
Probably about 90%. I don't trust anybody 100%, not even myself.
Right. Okay.
And everybody else on that list, I don't trust.
Nobody.
I will say I don't, because all of them are affiliated with an organization that is connected to the government. Public Health, Public Health of Canada is actually there to protect the pharmaceutical companies, not the health of Canadians. The police, I'd love to trust them, but they have to operate by laws that are made, and there are no shortage of new laws coming out. Teachers, again, they are held to what the curriculum is, and that's passed down by an agency. I think our government has too much control.
So you have deep mistrust of government, generally speaking, right?
Yes. And
fair to say. Yeah. Okay. But let me just say. Okay. Let me just say. And again, I come back to nurses usually get very high trust scores. Nurses. Well, Linda, you're in the hospital, okay, and the nurse is there, and taking care of you as best she can, with the state of our healthcare system. How would you say you don't trust nurses?
They have to do what they are told to do.
Okay.
A few years ago, I had, and I don't want to, really get into the
we don't have to get into
years ago what happened, but I had a brother passed away in a hospital, and I wasn't allowed to go and see him. Things have
So that would have been, was that
changed
during the pandemic? Was that during the pandemic,
Yeah.
Linda?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Right. So
you know,
that has left a scar,
all those-
obviously.
all those professions, even business people, they have to do what they are told to do. And if they don't, then they are put out of business, basically.
Okay. Right. But deep mistrust of government on your behalf, but high trust for your neighbors. Very interesting. Thank you, Linda. Okay. 1-833-668-2577. Moving along. With more of your calls coming up. And our trust scorecard today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So on this list here, the police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the most? And the least? 1-833-668-2577. Andrew is in Calgary. Hi, Andrew.
Oh, hey there, Rob. Happy Thursday to you.
Same to you. Yeah.
Okay.
What would you say?
I would, hopefully I can be concise here. And I think the larger an organization gets, the harder it is to trust them. So I think we can say the police, I don't really trust that much. The government, I don't trust that much. So I hope that encompasses a good portion of them, just because when you have business is a good example. So businesses, business leaders, the bigger that business is, the further away they are from the customer, the easier it is for things to go wrong and the less empathy, and they just don't care anymore. Whereas a small business owner is still, there's face time. They know the customer is important and they care and they put that effort in. So you can trust the small business owner. But the bigger the company, the harder it is to trust them. So that kind of, I think, covers a lot of that stuff.
Right. But so with business leaders, because traditionally when studies are done on this, people who are in business are generally, say, a lot more respected than people who are in politics, for example, right? But a business leader could mean a whole bunch of things. To your point, it could mean the family who owns the local hardware store in a community, or it could mean the CEO of a big Canadian bank, right? Would the levels of trust be the same for the two? That's your point, I think, is what you're getting at.
Exactly. They would be different.
Yeah.
The more removed they are, the less trust involved.
Gotcha.
Nurses, doctors. Nurses, I'd say I trust more, again, because they tend to spend more time with you. Doctors, less so. They're more removed. They have a lot more rules they have to adhere to. And you always get the impression that they have to see as many people as they can in a short amount of time. So there's a difference there, too. So it's, I don't think you can ever trust somebody 100%, but teachers probably more than superintendents or the school board, because again, you're closer, there's more connection, but once you get far removed, I trust you less.
Okay. Right. So teachers, because they're the front line, whereas at the board, well, that's kind of the administration and not on the front lines of the education system. Again, right? It's all about how close you are to the person would determine your level of trust. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you, what about your neighbors? Do you trust your neighbors?
The ones I've met, yes.
The ones you've met.
I've gotten to know them and I've dealt with them. The ones that are, several houses down or half a block away, I may see them in passing. I don't know that I would trust them, but I don't distrust them. It would be a different level of trust, I guess. Yeah.
Different level of trust. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Very good, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah. Real pleasure to take your call today. Let's go to Sharon up next. Hi, Sharon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, Sharon.
I'd like to say the occupation I trust the most is doctors. I've had the good fortune of having 6 specialists at once.
Wow.
And they have been, number one, kind.
That's good.
Not perfect, but they have been kind people that are doing their best to help their patients. And over the course of my life, 2 of the doctors have made mistakes.
Okay.
That's just what happens. The one was just not a very good doctor. The other one made an honest mistake.
Okay.
And that happens in life. They were trying their best.
Sure.
Now, the people I trust the least, and Judge Judy has this saying, if you hear a teenager speak, you know they're lying.
Okay.
That is my viewpoint of police. If you
That's
hear
your
a
viewpoint of police.
policeman speak,
Right.
they are lying.
Really?
Yes, I've dealt with the police on a number of occasions, not because I'm a criminal, but and they will lie in court to make their point. And yeah, I've experienced it.
Okay.
So,
okay.
A police I trust the least. Teachers and nurses, I would say most of them are simply in for the money.
Oh, really? Okay.
And, yeah. Teachers I trust less than nurses for sure. Yeah.
And they be lower, say lower on your list? Lower?
Yes. Yes.
They would
Teachers
be.
are lower
Okay.
on my list because they'll say, no, when your child comes home from school and the child says, the teacher hit me or whatever, well the kid isn't lying about it.
Well, that would be a
they do
rarity
lie.
now that a teacher would that would be a very rare thing to happen now, that a teacher would ever strike a student.
Right.
Not in
But
this
when
day and
my-
age, not in 2025 Canada. Maybe when I
But
was going to school
when
or when
my-
you were going to school, that
when
was a
my-
common occurrence, but
not
not
when,
anymore.
not in my day when my children went to school, and it wasn't permitted at the time, but the one teacher spanked the kids
Okay.
on a regular basis.
Well, how many years
So,
ago was
but
that?
they just
How many
lie.
years ago was that?
That would have been 35 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Long time ago. Yeah,
A
it
long
doesn't
time
happen in
ago,
this day
but,
and age.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. That's it. We're out of time. I appreciate your call, though. Doctors. High trust for doctors. Not so for the police. Or teachers, for that matter. Very rare, again, I come back to this, that teachers would get low trust scores. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Cal next on our trust scorecard. Hi, Cal.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Thanks for calling.
Good.
Let's get
Thanks
to
for
it
taking
here.
my call.
Who do you
Hey,
trust?
and I don't want to be overly cynical, but I kind of am. I take a look at it in such a way that anyone's words or actions that can be pushing an agenda or monetary value, from politicians. They can, sort budgets in a certain direction, award contracts, friends and family, that type of thing. Police officers, they can have an agenda to make certain arrests at certain ethnic groups or certain neighborhoods to get more funding. Teachers push the curriculum, but at the same time, their own personal agenda as well. So you're kind of relying on the integrity of those teachers to, raise your children for the most part, because, they're there for 8 hours a day. And if they have a certain direction that they believe in, they're going to implement that into their studies at school, I would think. Nurses, I think, are lower on the list of, being exposed to something like that. But then again, they've got, their doctors, their unions that say, hey, we're getting behind a certain drug, and, we want to use this drug,
that might be more for doctors. That might be more for or pharmacists, for that matter.
Pharmacists, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Neighbors, I think, for the most part, it's just one of those things. Personal experience from your own neighbors. They necessarily wouldn't have a monetary agenda to do harm to you or lead you in a different direction. So I think that would be, your most trustworthy out of all the candidates that you've
out of all of them
today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so your neighbors would get high trust scores.
Absolutely. Okay. And I think, like politicians, I think a lot of them start out with great intentions, but they have access to too many things that could personally benefit them. And, the temptation's there. And you have to trust, I guess, that they're going to do the right thing. But in human nature, in most cases, self-preservation.
Right. So what I'm going to take away from our conversation, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Nurses, fairly high, not the highest, and neighbors, the highest. Everyone else, you're skeptical of, my word, because there may be agendas at play. And you're distrustful of that. Very good. 1-833-668-2577. Trust Scorecard. We'll get more of your calls right after the latest breaking news. It's coming up next on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Of this list, the police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges, who do you trust the most? Who do you trust the most? Who's bringing up the rear in that list? Dave, Waterloo. Thanks for waiting, Dave. Great to hear from you today. Thanks for calling.
Hello.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, hi, Dave.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm from Halifax, not Waterloo.
Okay.
Bit of a difference there, my friend. That's okay. Now, listen.
My mistake.
Let's start off with journalism, your job. That's huge because you put the word out. Not you specifically, but journalism does. News. I think journalism's turned into more of panels. I think you had one caller, CNN and Fox, so different. Depends what echo chamber you want to live in. And I don't think it's trust. To me, it's faith, having faith in our system, which has been under liberal government for 10 years. Now, I brought that up because government pays our tax money towards teachers, law enforcement, healthcare, and the judicial system. And so that's all tied into government, a liberal government, one of the most liberal countries in the world, like it or not. And
yeah, but that would be the case even if it was a conservative government. And in the case of teachers and nurses, that's provincial. There's only one liberal government in all of the provinces now. One.
Well, that is true, but I think a lot of it is reflected by government, and which is mostly liberal and has been governed by, well, federally, the medical system, right? So what I'm saying is I think there's an agenda behind teaching, behind hiring of police, for example. Like, I guess the word I don't want to throw out there is indoctrination. When you're hiring police that are under height, and military's the same thing, right? If you're overweight and they have to hire so many people because they can't find anybody else to fit the bill, perhaps, and they lower the bar on something that is an extreme, like police work, for example. You know what I'm saying? So I think what it is to me, and on ending, and there's, you got neighbors and what have you, but I think the most important thing is journalism, education, law enforcement, healthcare, and I think to me it's the system. And when you have a system that tends to be breaking down, I hear people, your callers, right? They've had a lot of frustration. I think in healthcare, when you hear 70 hours waiting to get into emergency and you suffered a stroke or something, which we had just recently here in our province, it's frightening. And that's where you do get the fear thing or the distrust. And I don't think it's necessarily the doctors and what have you. Now, on another platform, I've got a new doctor. He's right out of school. So after having a doctor, thank goodness I have a doctor, Rob. But I think it's more the system. And on ending, I think I heard your show with the pedophile case with the justice system. I can guarantee you, Rob, those 5 justices, and I know you're upset about the whole thing too. I'm really, really upset about that. That's just icing on the cake, how our system is fragmenting and falling apart when they have basically gone lenient on child pornography and pedophiles that should be locked up and the keys should be thrown away.
Okay.
So
that was last week's show. That was last week's show. That was last week's show, and I appreciate the opinion. And I was frustrated as well. That was a week ago tomorrow, as a matter of fact. But would that signify declining trust in judges? Was my point today.
Well, you have to. How couldn't you? They're the top of the bar, the justice, and that's the fear thing. The Supreme Court. That's it, man. So to me, the system is okay. That's it. Okay, thanks, Rob.
Good to get you on from Halifax today. Who do we have now? John. Is it Lucknow, Ontario? John?
Close enough. That's where I am right now visiting. But Rob, that's close enough. It's I don't know, about an hour northwest of Kitchener. Just a couple of comments about somebody made a comment about certain businesses or this has an agenda. Everyone in life has an agenda, whether you're a child or I had an agenda one time when I was trying to figure out how I'd get my wife to marry me, that type of thing. So everyone has an agenda. If I had to trust 2 of your callers, though, today, I really enjoyed the call by Andrew and his comments about business. If I wouldn't trust anybody of your callers, that lady who gets her life advice from Judge Judy. But anyway, my point is, and who I don't even think is a judge, but if you watch that program, well, that says it all, I guess. I think
she's retired now anyway. Okay, go ahead.
So am I, a long time ago. But anyway, my lack of trust, I guess, and it just irks me on a daily basis, is government, our politicians. And if you ask me to speak specifically about one department, I think I would have to pick our immigration, our deputy minister, our minister of immigration. You look at the number of hotels that are filled with these so-called asylum seekers, and I say that because I have very good evidence. Some of these people have got 5, 6, 7 kids, and they're all stuck in a hotel. Our tax dollars are cleaning their clothes, washing everything, the bed linen and stuff, feeding them. But we're teaching them about how to get a house and how to get a job and a resume. Well, a woman from Nigeria who's got 5, 6, 7 kids living in a hotel in Ottawa or Niagara Falls, how are they going to get out and get a job? We're wasting so much of our tax dollars, and that's what irks me, and that's why I do not trust politicians. And to put the icing on the cake, that PC guy from Nova Scotia who jumped to the Liberals, just because he probably feels that he'll have a long career just to get a pension. So politicians, government, Rob, are my number one for not
number
trusting.
One. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. Good to fit you in today. 1-833-668-2577. Probably time for maybe 5 more calls. And I think there are 4 lines available. So why don't you grab one of them and have your say. And fill out your trust scorecard for us. You're on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Just an update on some political news today. We are getting word that the NDP says it will vote with the Liberals on the first confidence vote on the budget, which is probably a signal that the NDP is probably going to vote for all the confidence votes on the budget. In other words, election averted. would be the good bet right now by the sounds of things. I know a lot of you probably didn't think we were going to an election anyway, but the speculation was fun, wasn't it? We are doing the trust scorecard. I have a list here: the police, business leaders, your neighbors, nurses, journalists, politicians, doctors, scientists, teachers, and judges. Who gets high scores for trust? Who gets low scores for trust? Let's go to Zach. Is in Calgary today. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, it's Zach. Yeah, good to hear from you. What would you say?
I think to start, people in my generation were taught from a young age to fundamentally mistrust institutions, and that begins with public education for most of us. I trust the institutions on a fundamental level, but I feel like most of them have been penetrated by either progressive ideologues or just bad people in general. Like, I trust the position of law enforcement, medicine, and their roles in society, but when doctors say that men can get pregnant or a judge grants special leniency to criminals, my trust collapses. For neighbor, I would say neighbor is probably who I trust the most, but I'd broaden the term. Close friends that I've, in my life or that I've met at church, my parish priest who I know personally, I trust them with my life. My school board trustee sits in front of me at church and her kids play with my kids. I trust them. I'd love to trust my next door neighbor, and I've made attempts to talk to them and communicate, but they don't even speak my language. And I have no cultural solidarity with them. I can't communicate with them.
Interesting. Just on, you say young people are, taught to mistrust institutions or have distrust of institutions. I never know which one is which. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? For example, in Alberta, for example, we just saw, hundreds of students walk out in solidarity with the teachers who were on strike, for example.
Yeah. And they were taught by those teachers. That's kind of my original point with, it begins with public education. You go to, what was it, a couple of years ago where they were tearing down a statue of Queen Victoria in front of the legislature, just viciously, destroying and defacing, our cultural.
Okay. Right. I see.
It doesn't get more of an authority figure than that, right? Yeah.
Right. Okay. So high trust for you would be, again?
I would say, neighbors who I know personally. And you had a caller that actually made a really good point. I totally agree with it. It's the closer you are to the people in these institutions, those are the people you trust. I wouldn't trust most school trustees. I wouldn't. But the one I have for my ward sits in front of me and her kids play with my kids. I talk to her. I know how she feels. I know I can see her. And I know that, right? I guess that's part of the community thing I talked about weeks ago, right? When you have solidarity in a community.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Zach. Interesting. Let's move along to Abe is in Champion, Alberta. Hi, Abe.
Hi. How are you?
Very good, Abe. Thank you.
Ron, good. Yeah. I have a little bit of a different take on trust. I trust all the professionals. I know there's bad ones in every group, but the people that I'm scared of dealing with are used car salesmen and door-to-door salespeople. And I just think they don't parse the facts the way I would look at them. And that's the same thing when I criticize politicians and the news media. I think they parse facts differently at times than facts should be parsed. They most have a really one-sided view of things and don't give people all the information they need so they can make better decisions, and and so on. But outside of that, I hear a lot of your callers. I just don't have a problem with police. I don't have a problem with doctors, nurses, with teachers.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Abe, because you've called me before, and I believe you're a business person, right?
I'm a what?
A business person. You've been in business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, many years.
What builds trust for other business people, in your opinion?
Well, if you do what you say you're going to do, you know what you want.
Okay. Right.
And I'll give you an example. I had a customer that called me, and he just kept calling back, and he couldn't make up his mind what he wanted. And I felt, all he's trying to do is get me confused and beat the price down. So, that I just told the guy I don't want to deal with you anymore. And I just had no trust. But, like most people aren't like that. Homeowners and everybody with me, they'll shake on it. That out here with all the farmers in southern Alberta, I never have to worry about getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Their word is the law. And most of the businesses are like that. They tell you, I'll do it.
Can you still do a handshake, what I would call a handshake deal? Could you do a handshake deal, or does everything have to be written down and lawyered up?
No, everything's handshake.
That's
good. And we really,
encouraging.
it's very rare. And I've done this since 1971. It's rare that I've never not been paid. And that doesn't mean everybody's turned around and said, Abe, here's the money we agreed. If they have a problem, we talk about it, right?
Sure.
But I'm not mad at them, if they see things differently to what they thought I would do for them and so on, then we just negotiate, and so we're both either both unhappy or equally unhappy or equally happy, but that's life,
Thank you.
Thank
you, Abe.
Problem with stuff like
Love
that.
the take. Yeah, be right back with some closing thoughts. You're on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I'm just going through some of the answers. I wrote down here on my notepad, high trust, low trust, and somewhere in the middle. Teachers, nurses, neighbors, very popular answers, along with police and doctors. Low trust, judges and the police as well. Some people have a lot of trust in the police. Some have no trust at all in the police. And politicians, of course, not surprised to see that. Although we did take some calls today from people who did not have a lot of trust in teachers or doctors, which is very rare in Canada. Politicians, very much a popular answer on low trust politicians. Not surprised to see that. And in the middle, just because, it didn't really come up today, I was surprised more people did not, go after, my profession, the news media, trust in the news media. We could do a whole show just on that. And business did not really come up. So it's kind of in the middle. And scientists, which kind of surprised me, a very high trust profession in the minds of most people. I did put neighbors on the list because I did want to know, do you trust your neighbors? Do you even know your neighbors? I actually had something else on the list when I began preparing for today's show. I had faith leaders on the list. One of our callers mentioned that, priests, ministers, rabbis, imams. But everyone has neighbors, I thought. Well, not everyone is religious or goes to church. So I kind of swapped out faith leaders for neighbors. Neighbors. A neighborhood friend of mine passed away in the last few days. As a matter of fact, he was a good neighbor. John was a good neighbor because I had never really lived in a rural area before, which is where I live now. I was raised in a small town, and then I moved to the big city, and I lived in the big city for 30 years. And then I decided I wanted to get away from it all, and I moved to this rural area where I live now several years ago, and I got to know John, much older than me, a retired cop from the big city, and he was a good man, a big, burly, 6'5" former cop, and he kind of showed me around, introduced me to a lot of people. Rob, if you need a plumber, call this guy. If you need an electrician, call this guy. If you need wood for the winter, call this guy, that kind of stuff. And, avoid this guy. And from time to time, I would have to go into the city and spend a few days there, and he would keep an eye on my place. And when I had to go into when he had to go into the city for a few days, I would do the same for him. And, we got to know one another pretty well over the years. And I'm just going to close on this. When you lose a neighbor and a friend and someone you trust, it can hit you. And I was kind of hit by that this week. Really going to miss you. John, you were a good neighbor. Tomorrow, it's going to be the Friday Free-for-All Talkback, which is always an adventure because, we don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We leave that heavy lifting up to you. And it can be about something in the news, or it can be about today, something, more or less unrelated to the breaking news of the day. We will have the latest breaking news coming up next. And then you join us again tomorrow with more of your phone calls, please, on Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. And this is News Radio.